Yeah, I lived in Russia for about 2 years. For a year, I was a director of operations and NASA manager at the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City there. So I had more of a management job, and then I spent another year there training for a space station mission. And I got to say, overall, the astronauts and cosmonauts get along exceedingly well. We really have a lot of camaraderie there. Even though our countries had political differences, and when I was over there, I think we were just beginning the invasion of Afghanistan. There were some really tense moments where the United States and Russia were butting heads politically, but it didn't impact our work on the International Space Station at all. So I think like training with the Russian cosmonauts, we all got along pretty well. We have that bond because we're all space travelers, and that really does a lot to bring us together. Yeah, the language thing is a big issue. So you need to be able to talk, especially on the space station. You're going to be up there with 6 months or a year with your crew members, so you want to be able to communicate with them. So the American astronauts, everybody will learn both Russian, and the Russians will learn English. So we can speak in 2 languages up there. Everything is labeled on the space station. Everything has 2 labels in Russian and in English. We've got a control center in Houston, Texas that we communicate in English. There's a mission control in Moscow where you communicate in Russian. So you really need to know both languages. And I trained with one of my crew members was a Russian cosmonaut, Nikolai Budarin. He was an older cosmonaut. He didn't speak very much English. We trained together for about 2 years, and I only heard him speak English once. So we had to communicate in my bad Russian, but we were still able to communicate and get our work done. I don't know of any inventions yet that have come out of International Space Station, and inventions out of NASA over the 60-some years history of the program. We've got miniature electronics, high-speed computers. A lot of that miniaturization really helped us out. Weather satellites, things like that. Space station, we do a lot of basic research, and we study how plants and animals grow up there, how fluids behave, how fires burn, how combustion takes place in zero gravity. And that always doesn't have an immediate impact. There's not a great invention that pops out immediately. Typically with basic research, you do it, you study it, and it may be 10 years, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. We learn more, and then you find some application for that knowledge. So we're looking at how fires burn in space in zero gravity, trying to understand some of the basic fundamentals of combustion. How does incomplete combustion take place when there's soot particles and other pollutants? And maybe from the experiments we're doing today in space, down the road, 5, 10, or 15 years, we can improve our burning processes here on Earth for our cars or power plants. So I don't know any direct, immediate inventions that came out of the space station yet. It doesn't mean the research isn't valuable, because that's basic research is that you are just getting basic knowledge, and then maybe one day it's got an application for somebody. Some of what we're doing up in space on the human body, I think, will have the greatest promise. We're trying to minimize the muscle loss and bone loss for our astronauts in space. And if we can figure out, okay, how can we minimize bone loss and get at the mechanism of what causes bones to lose your calcium, and how can you gain that calcium back? Maybe we can use that for our senior citizens here with osteoporosis, and also weakening of the muscles as well. So some of that has great potential. Velcro and Teflon are the 2 of the jokes of the space program. NASA gets credit for inventing Velcro, and they get credit for inventing Teflon. I don't know if you know about Teflon. They made it on cooking frying pans when I was about your age. It was a new invention. Nothing stuck to it. I don't think NASA invented either one of those. I don't know that for a fact, but I don't think they did. But they made them very popular. Velcro is used everywhere. I got it right here on my spacesuit, and all on the inside of the shuttle. We have Velcro placed there so we can anchor things down, keep them from floating away. So NASA kind of made Velcro famous, I think, but they didn't necessarily invent it. The International Space Station could have been built without our partners. Technically, we could have done that. It would have been more expensive to do so. We've got 15 countries. We spread the wealth, we spread the cost of it, from many countries participating, so it makes it more affordable for us. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think the space station would have survived politically without our international partners. I think it would have been canceled years ago already. Just like they phased out the space shuttle program, I think there was a desire to phase out the space station. But we had so many political commitments with many different countries that it would have been too difficult to cancel it and phase it out. So it makes things easier having all these partners. And when we had a problem with the shuttle program after the Columbia accident, we relied on our partners, on the Russians. We could still launch astronauts up and down at the space station, get supplies up there. So it's good to have that partnership. But technically, we could have done it without any partners. I think we had the capability. We had Skylab space station. We know how to do things like that. It just would have cost more money, and maybe it wouldn't have been as reliable, or we wouldn't be able to do other things, or not other things, but we wouldn't have the backup, like of the Russians helping us launch things when our space shuttle went down. So it makes it a lot easier, I think, with partnerships. Yeah, I think two ways. One is just with the technology. We're testing out equipment up on the International Space Station that we'll need for missions to Mars. And when you go to Mars, it's about a 3-year round trip. It'll be 4 to 6 months to get there, 4 to 6 months to get back, and then you'll need to be on the surface for about 2 years. And the reason for that is you want to launch when Earth and Mars are close together, and as soon as you launch, the planets start separating, getting further apart, and you have to wait until they get close together to return home. So it's about a 3-year mission. You need everything to work for at least 3 years, because it's too difficult to come back if there's an emergency or some problem. So you want to make sure that your life support systems to keep the astronauts, alive and healthy and happy are all good and reliable for 3 years or more. You want to make sure, your food systems, everything that you could possibly need for generating electricity, for all your power systems, your heating, cooling. You want to make sure everything works, well for a long period of time and is very reliable. And we're testing that out on the space station right now. So the space station's been up there for 16 years already. Some of these systems have been operating for that long, and that gives you confidence. Okay, we know what we're doing. That'll help us go into Mars. Just a few years ago, we started recycling wastewater up on the station. It's really disgusting, but we recycle urine and purify it back into drinking water. And that, as disgusting as that sounds, that's really critical if you're going to go to Mars. You have to recycle almost everything. Anything that you can recycle, you need to, because water is such a critical resource and so rare on Mars. So things like that, the space station is a great test bed, we call it, an area where you could test out all this equipment and what you're doing before you go and commit yourself for a trip to Mars. Yeah, the conflict with the countries, I don't think it's ever entered into the space program itself. And when I told you I was a director of operations in Star City, and I remember a few times when we had just invaded or we had bombed something in the Middle East, and I could tell I was getting the cold shoulder from my Russian counterparts, some of the other managers there. They weren't happy. They were letting me know that they weren't happy, but that did not impact our day-to-day work at all. So I could tell they did not like what my government had just done, but that didn't impact, our day-to-day operations. But they just had to let me know they weren't pleased with that, but we're going to continue working together. So I think that we've done a really great job. That could be the greatest legacy of the space station. 10 or 20 years down the road, people will look back, and it will be an amazing technological achievement, but even more so a political achievement that we had 15 countries or so working together for a long period of time, not just for a week or a month or a year, but this will be almost 2 decades that we'll have worked together and send our crews up there from all these nations that are going up there, and just working together despite everything else that happens down on planet Earth, that still goes on, that we're still committed to space exploration together as a group. I think that'll be a great, great achievement of the program. Yeah, I mean, that's true. You were up there as a team. So they have a crew of 6 up there now. Each of their lives depend on the other crew members, doing their job properly. And there's no room for politics up there. You can have your differing opinions, things like that, but you are part of a team, and you're all looking out for each other. So, I would agree that there are no politics up in space. Like I said, you can have your political opinion on it, but you're not going to say, hey, I know you're thirsty and you want water, but you can't have any of my water. It's because, I need your electricity, you need my water, I need your capsule to launch us, you need me for our spacesuit. So we are just so intertwined and dependent on one another that I think politics have to just go out the door, when you're up in space. And that's the way it's been. I've never seen any hint of any politics up there.